Yet another win with plenty to work on. It's time to start harping on rugby. Hello, my name is Jeff Pagano and welcome to Harpin On Rugby, where with the help of some fellow fans, I get the chance to harp on what's going on with Leinster, Ireland and the wider rugby world. First up, joining me this week is someone earning Harpin cap number 61. Hello to Mr. Connor Cronin. Welcome, sir.
Thanks very much, Jeff. Good to be back.
And also with us is someone on appearance number 6. Hello once again to Mr. David Cordial.
Thanks, Jeff. Good to be here.
Great to have you both on. Okay, well, listen, let's crack on with our feature match of the week, which was, of course, Leinster v Clermont Auvergne in round 2 of the 24-25 Investec Champions Cup. It was played at the Aviva Stadium on Saturday, December 14th. It was chilly around D4 with a misty rain never far away from the air. And after the pre-match pyrotechnics were done, we had the makeshift Clermont out half, Ire Simone, getting the match underway, Connor.
Yeah, I got to say, for a makeshift out half, he'd a pretty good shift while he was in at 10. I think he did a good job. To say this game started frantic and physical and enthusiastic, it just seemed like everybody wanted to run at everything. Like the fact you get over 2.5 minutes, nearly 3 minutes before you get the first stoppage in play really gives a measure that both teams wanted to go for it 100%. I think before the match, I had a couple of little concerns. By the time we were through that first 3 minutes, my three major concerns for the match, I think poor Liam Turner, we could see him when he had ball in hand and he was running. I think he was quite impressive during the game, but for being on a wing where the aerial demands on you are a little bit more, I think he's just too short for what was being asked of him. He wasn't getting up for those balls in a way that other guys would. I think the Clermont scrum half, I think he was one of my other concerns, and he really proved that in those opening few minutes that he was constantly looking for space, looking for a little snipe here and there, an extra couple of meters where he could, and very. I think one place where he got that extra couple of meters, and I want to flag this now, just to be clear that I'm not in any way intending to bash Luke Pearce, who I think mostly had a reasonable game. There's a lovely bit where he gets tackled and Luke Pearce shouts, "That's a tackle, hands away," and whatever. And so all the tacklers let go. And then he keeps running. If he was tackled, he should have been on the ground, or he should have at least let go of the ball or something. But anyway, he took his opportunity when he saw it. And it's that opportunistic threat that was there the whole game when he was on. My third concern that stemmed from previous weeks was our line out. And we get our first line out at 3 minutes and we lose our first line out at 3 minutes. And it didn't get a whole lot better throughout as far as I'm concerned. I think that there are 3 tries missing from our final score line purely because the line out refused to function. And I don't know if it's Kelleher or if it's the caller, but when you consider that a couple of them were crooked in. I think the sooner that law change that says crooked in not contested is play on. So let's get on with it, please and thank you. I think that one needs to come in. I think it works of all the law variations they trialed. But the line out was a massive concern. And the fact that we lose our first line out and then we get a couple of phases later to that moment where that call of that's a tackle, so release him, and then he just keeps running. That leads to a little grubber that catches a Leinster player in the foot. And of course, the minute it touches any Leinster player, everybody's onside. So you've got Clermont players running at it. And then it just takes physicality to get the try. Clermont's opening try is opportunistic. I think they went looking for an opportunity and they found it though. And the more you practice, the luckier you get, maybe. I think they are lucky to get the touch of the ball. off a Leinster player. I think the other place they're a little lucky, watching it back, their hooker goes diving way off his feet, way over the top of the ruck before Raka gets to it. Raka diving over for the act of scoring, no issue with that big dive over that clears out a Leinster player who might have been there to defend. I got questions on that, but he dives over, he gets the score, it's given. Like I say, they've taken the most of an opportunity and made it count, and turned it into 7-0. I think off the restart, again, you can really see the physicality. You can see how hard we're working to create space, to make room. We get the first of our scrums not long after that restart. I say we get the first of our scrums. We get the first attempt at a scrum, and Luke Pearce calls a free kick because Clérmont just didn't want to get involved. He's like, right, if you want to waste the time, let's just give the free kick and get on with it. We work through a lot of phases before we get turned over on the 5-meter line. It's disappointing to see moments like that where, players are trying to do things, they're trying to do the right things. But again, I think it just shows that the Clérmont defence were well set up. I think they had a plan for how to deal with us, and I think they stuck to it well. Poach when you can poach, but otherwise, one man into tackle and everybody else fan out to not give the space, to not create space for us, and it worked well for them quite a lot. They missed touch off that penalty, so we don't have to worry about trying to get a line out. And our own kick through turns into a goal line dropout, which we win. And over the next few phases, we get a high shot on Turner that certainly the crowd wanted a better look at that from the TMO. TMO, I think, relates to Pearce that, look, it's hit him on the chest and rolled up. It's maybe a slightly generous call. Again, I think maybe it's a height difference thing as well, because Turner's that bit shorter. Maybe that's part of why it's happened. But with the penalty, we get deep into the corner. That kick, that was a brave kick, and you can see the assistant referee kind of standing, moving around the corner flag to make sure that it's actually going over the line in front of where he's standing. An absolutely great kick into touch, butchered by another crappy lineout, which is very quickly. This is one of the ones where I say we should have had a score off this. That should have been a well-set maul that we could get moving, and at the very least, we could have ended up coming away from there with 3 points out of that because of something that might have happened afterwards. And we're not giving ourselves the opportunity because the line out is just so poor. It's really disappointing. We get play going forward again not long after, and we lose it because Turner's trying to bat it on to Deegan. That happened a couple of times during the match where players are getting the ball and trying to, rather than take the pass and pass it off, they're trying to bat the pass on to the next player. It happened a couple of times, and a couple of times it went forward when that happened, and it happened this time as Turner was trying to get it out to Deegan. And then we get the first actual scrum of the game, where we give away the free kick for too much pressure. It's a scrum. There's meant to be pressure. I know you've got to get the ball in and then apply the pressure, but is the ball in quick enough that it's the interpretation on the day. I think we're trying to make use of a scrum, knowing that our loose head will probably have the makings of their tight head based on previous times spent together, that they'll know, Porter will know what to do to target Al Alatoa. And I think that's what we were aiming for. But look, from the early pressure, we get a free kick, and I was convinced off this free kick, the ball gets kicked downfield, and sitting behind where Geordie took that ball for the match in the stadium, I said, that's a knock-on. I was utterly convinced. I think watching it back, I am no less convinced that it was a knock-on, and probably should have been a scrum to them just outside the 22. We get the benefit of the referee and the assistant referee saying it's actually gone backwards. I don't agree with it, but that's just how it is. And look, a bit of kick tennis happening, and a lovely kick forward from Jimmy O'Brien that leads to them trying to pass it out, and the ball going into touch, and we get another line out, which is, again, not straight. You're going to hear me say this a lot. Crap line out, crap line out, crap line out. I'll just get it all said now. So every time you hear the word line out for Leinster, you're expecting a crap line out. The first real scrum happens then, because it actually, there's a proper crouch bind and set, and the ball goes in and the ball comes out. We get a bit of kick tennis before a tackle. Tackle goes very wrong for poor Moana, who, in his attempts to tackle, gets caught by the fact that the other Clermont player tackling hits Geordie's arm, and it rockets back into the side of the Clermont player's head. And geez, the poor fella looked very shaky. The ref was very quick to say, he's out cold, stop the play. We'll restart with a scrum in a couple of minutes. I think he was very shook after that. And I think the Clermont centre pairing, they typically be very strong together. And now we're at about 15 minutes and they're having to replace one of that centre pairing, which, you know, when you're looking at it happen live and in the moment, you're thinking, great, here is an opportunity for us to exploit maybe that channel, to go looking for that space, because whoever slots in now into 12, as 12 goes to 13, maybe we've a little bit more opportunity. We get a penalty off the scrum that comes off that, and it goes down to the corner. And weirdly and surprisingly, after me just saying it, we actually won this line out, clean and fair. And then there's a couple of lovely moves to get us closer to the line before it's they get pinged for hands on the floor. Sam Prendergast is unfortunate that he's probably about a foot and a half too far infield as he takes that tap and goes for the line. If he'd been a little bit further left, if he'd come past Luke Pearce on that short side, I think Pearce wouldn't have said a thing and it would have been try time. But he goes diving over the line before he's had a chance to ground it. He's already being called back for not taking it from the mark. But we go for the penalty. We get the line out. I don't think it's brilliantly clean, because when we go to try and form the maul, it doesn't form right. So we've got to go for phases instead. And then with a couple of penalty advantages being called throughout these phases, there's a lovely loop. Prendergast to Deegan, back to Prendergast, running the loop, him to Gary, and they've created the space, and Gary goes running a lovely line in to get it over for our first try. It's 21 minutes in, so it's taken far longer than I was happy with watching it live in the stands. But we're 21 minutes in, it's 7-7. Off the restart, you get some good moments. Geordie makes some really good yards in taking it before, as you know, again, is finding space. And after a couple of phases and a little bit of back and forth, they kick it through. And as Prendergast goes to take it, misses catching the ball cleanly. It bounces forward straight into a Clermont set of hands. They take it, they start running into what is a very clean 3v2. The first tackle's made, and now it's 2v1, and you're thinking, shite, here we go. Try time for Clermont. They butcher it with probably half a metre to go. Poor fullback drops it. All he had to do was take it in the chest and drop over the line, and he's knocked it on. And off that, there's some lovely, lovely carries as we try to run it back. I have Josh with a really good carry. I've James Ryan with a really good carry. I've Turner with a really good carry. And suddenly we're 7 metres out, with a penalty. And off a quick tap, it's Deegan to Prendergast to Barrett, who goes crashing over very hard for his second try in as many tests. He's had 2 games for us. He's got 2 tries for us. And as Rich Mifsud's wife said, and he popped it into the chat afterwards, it's probably the only time Geordie Barrett's been applauded for a try in the Aviva. But it's a well-taken try. A pity we can't convert it, but it's now 12-7, and it's looking a little bit better. I think for the rest of the half, I'm not going to try to get into absolutely every moment or anything else for the rest of the half. I would say it stays very, very hectic, and there's real efforts being made the whole time. You've got Gary Ringrose with a chip and chase and taking it. But after the next phase, it gets knocked on. You've got a little further down, a little further on, probably what I think was the worst moment of the game for any of the officials, in that, there's a scrum leading to a line out that we just about take and kick tennis. And then we get an opportunity where, off an accidental offside on our part, the scrum happens, and just after that scrum, they've knocked it on, and Josh van der Flier boots it forward and goes sprinting and gets grabbed by somebody on the way through. The entire crowd saw it. I'm pretty sure it was very, very close to where the referee was. I'm pretty sure it was very close to in line with where at least one of the assistants was, and apparently none of them had seen it. And as he goes running forward, he's been held back, but we're still chasing. Eventually, as they get back down, and they go for a chip over the top, and it leads to nothing. And then suddenly it's recognized, oh, by the way, that happened. Yeah, sorry, just seen the replay on the screen. He actually says that. I've just seen the replay. I must have missed it. You have players shouting at you. How are you missing this? Did you not just see that? Can we please go for that? And it takes, I'd say, about a minute before they finally agree on where did the contact happen? Where did the ball land? Because it should be a penalty from where the ball lands. And there's a few other things going on before we eventually get our penalty, and we go for the line out. It's another messy line out. We do get it, and there's a lot of good before eventually they steal. We put a block on their kick. They turn it over again. In that particular turnover, to lose 10 meters in that, because Porter's saying whatever he's saying, I don't care what he said. You can ask a question, but I think even the words Pearse used, number one, spraying or something, I couldn't quite hear what word he used, but you could tell Pearse was annoyed that Porter had said anything. By all means, ask the question afterwards where, sir, do you mind? I feel like he had his hands on the floor first or whatever, but shouting at the ref and losing 10 meters, it's coach killing stuff. They get a line out, they get no yards in the maul, and they try to chip it over, and Jimmy O'Brien marks it. They take the ball clean off that, and then they try something flashy where is running around the back of the player who's taken it for a switch in direction. And as he tries to catch it, it gets knocked into touch. So we've got a scrum. The scrum gives us a penalty. The penalty gives us an opportunity for a line out. And guess what happens? They take the ball, and it's a very clean steal. I'm not sure. I know the official stats didn't suggest that Clermont had any stolen lineouts. I would say that one was 100% a steal. They just got up in front of us and took it like they knew the call and they knew exactly what was coming. And then all they had to do was kick it into touch for half time at 12 points to 7.
Yeah, it was a strange first half. All right, definitely eventful. I mean, the highlight, the focus has to be on the lineouts. I mean, for me, like, there's often one element of your game that's struggling, but the question is, like, do you have tools in the toolbox to fix it? Last week in Bristol, the scrums were basically a lottery. We didn't know what way the ref was going to call them. So the question is, for me, was on our own put in, are we going to have some kind of a channel one ball player, so in and out? Just get it in and out. Forget about trying to win the penalty because you don't know how that's going to go, and get the ball out and do something with it. And this was a similar thing. This went through the whole game. Things were going wrong, and we can talk about that, but we didn't even have, I call it a 1-2-1 play. I don't know what the official name is, but you throw it to the guy, the first guy in the line out, back to the hooker, and then you just set it up. You secure the ball. You can't do a proper move off it, but at least you have the ball, and Leinster can do it. And like you said, the try we got came off a line out that worked. Then we're in the 22 again, and then the second line out wasn't perfect, but we secured the ball, and that gave us the time at least to go phases in their 5 meters. And like you said, Sam did his thing. And
your 10 can call for something different if you have the ball. You can have the ball and not go to plan,
Yeah.
but without possession, you're not scoring points.
Yeah, I was just surprised we didn't go for that one. So Clermont had a few issues themselves on their throw as well, but they actually did one of those at one stage, and I was just surprised we didn't. That's all. Their try, like you say, was a little bit fortunate. It took the deflection going through, but they, and in many ways, you say that they had the guy going the over the top before Raka got the try, but that's the kind of try you're going to let in. I think in the broader aspect of the game, we were lucky not to concede the second, like you say. I would actually give that credit that to our defense as well, because I think teams are just their mindset going up against the Leinster defense, especially the way we scramble, and we scrambled well today as well in the second half. We'll talk about that a bit later. But teams know that no matter how obvious the try looks now against Leinster, that they know everything has to be perfect to get it over, and that might have even contributed to just that little mistake. But for us to go back down the other end the way we did, we almost went all the way. I mean, that would have been a world had that finished. But that was definitely impressive. And I'm with you on the Porter back chat as well. I didn't like that. That's the second week in a row. I think it was Kelleher last week. Lots this Henry. I don't want to see that happening too often. But anyway, what did you make of the first half, David?
Yeah, no, I mean, I covered a lot of points there. I thought it became immensely frustrating the longer that half went on. The inability to win our own lineout ball. I mean, it doesn't really matter what else, the kind of field position you're generating through penalties. If you can't launch off that kind of set piece, and particularly a team like Leinster who like to launch attacks off set piece, I think we have to be now very wary of the fact that Clermont have shown other teams in the competition that if you can shut down our lineouts, it really cripples our ability to launch some of our more attacking strike plays. On that, I think credit deserves to go to Clermont, who were contesting every single lineout, and in some cases they had 2 jumper pods up for our lineouts. Like, they were going out of their way to do it. Now, they probably identified early on that they were making they were getting return out of it, but they, credit has to be given to them for that. I'd also as you said yourself, the Clermont try was very opportunistic. Ironically, I think if the try they didn't get was probably a better worked move than the try they did get. That was luck luck and pressure, and as much as anything else, I think you can probably draw a line of similarity between that knock on and Leinster's line out woes, in that both of them were obviously mistakes on the part of the team that made them, but also more indicative of the amount of pressure that was being applied by the opposition. We were lucky to get away with not conceding that second try, but at the same time, Geordie Barrett, and it felt I was down that end I was in the south stand for that match, and I could see it from behind, and it felt very All Blacks-esque to watch him gather the ball almost on our try line and then go for a run with it, which was and it's that run of play that then leads down to the other end, which leads to our second try. So it's that was a nice response from being that deep in, and that on our first try as well. I actually posted a link to it, or a clip from it on my Instagram story, more for the fun than anything else. But I hope everyone spotted the Sexton loop play on the Prendergast Ringrose try. That was very nice to see, and in a game where I thought Sam, it wasn't a perfect game, but he had a pretty good game. That was a very nice move to see from him, and to see a player who really seems to be growing into this opportunity, particularly in Leinster with the depth of out halves they have there, and at Ireland with the willingness of Andy Farrell to rotate at 10. Sam seems to be a player who's quite willing to take hold of any opportunity that comes his way, and if he can up his physicality. And there were 1 or 2 times actually in that game where he did engage in even counter rucking, which is something else for a 10 to get involved in. Then the sky's the limit for him. But yeah, no, it was a patchy first half, but I thought to come out of it with 2 tries and only 1 for them was acceptable.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, the thing about Sam is that his it's the main aspect of his game is the time, his body language and his positioning. That the extra little bit of space he has himself. It's like it makes time almost stand still for that split second. It gives him the extra time to pick his pass and put the pass into the right place. And he did that beautifully. In maybe 10 years, but kids will be calling it the Prendergast loop, and we'll have to remind them who was doing it first. But listen, we were the way things worked out, especially the way the lineouts were. We were happy enough with that halftime score, which was Leinster 12, Clermont 7. Well, before we return to the pod, first a little reminder of all the different places you'll find us in the Rugger sphere. For our latest bonus chat on our YouTube channel, we looked at comments Leo Cullen made in a press conference during the week. And to get access to all our latest content, as well as our presence on all the different social media platforms, you can bookmark us at linktree/Harpin On Rugby. We do most of our social media on Blue Sky this weather, so do follow us there if you can. And please be sure to comment, like, share, and subscribe as needed. And so with Leinster hoping to build on that halftime advantage, Sam Prendergast got things back underway, David.
He did. Sam launched it down just outside the 22. It was a nice little restart. Leinster, ASM went through a couple of phases that saw them back inside their own 22, which allowed them to kick it clear to the touch, and leading to a Leinster lineout, which as sort of became and continued to be the trend for the day, was picked off by Clermont. They went through a few good carries, but were turned over just inside their own half. It was a credit to, on a day where the lineout definitely didn't stand to us, our defence definitely did, and that continues to be a strength for Leinster. There was so that we got a turnover penalty there, and then some superb line kicking from Sam Prendergast, which is a point of strength for him. He put the ball right down onto the Clermont 5 metre line. From just inside their half. But once again, unfortunately, the throw was, in this case, slightly too high, which led to the jumper knocking it on. Clermont were able to clear and keeping it infield. Geordie Barrett, who was fielded it, went to run back up, but was promptly turned over on the ground after some very strong breakdown work from Clermont. They sent it wide, bounced loose, but Jimmy O'Brien, in an attempt to gather it, knocked it on, which led to an ASM scrum, which they actually managed to win a scrum penalty off. And they kicked down the line, gathered their own line out in a day when Leinster's line out didn't fire. Clermont's did, and they went through phases. But once again, Leinster's defensive pressure led to a knock on, giving them a scrum inside their own half. Played wide off the back of that, and Liam Turner out on the right wing, cut back in field, leading to James Ryan getting a hole and managing to break up into Clermont's half. Leinster went through some nice attacking phases until Sam Prendergast attempted a chip and chase over the top after Leinster not making much ground with their phase play. But I think it was Paseli Yato, the Clermont number 4, just decided to drop a shoulder into Sam as he was going by, taking him out. Luke Pearce standing right there, caught it in a heartbeat and gave the yellow without even double checking. So Leinster, with the penalty, decided that it was an opportunity to deploy our own bomb squad. So off the bench came Gus McCarthy for Ronan Kelleher. Rabah Slimani came on for Tom Clarkson. Jack Conan came on for Josh van der Fleer, interestingly. And R.H. Snyman came on for Joe McCarthy. With that switch, I think Jack Conan came on to 8 and Caelan Doris actually switched to 7, which I believe is a position Ireland first tried him in, and one he's actually quite good at, because he's quite good at most things. Off the back of that penalty, Leinster rather decided to go for the kicking tee, and Sam put 3 points over to bring it up to 15-7 at 48 minutes. And I made a point to mark that was the time, because unfortunately, spoiler alert, but that was the last score of the game. So Clermont restarted. It was gathered by James Ryan, and Sam Prendergast landed an excellent clearance kick. It went, rather than kicking directly up the left wing, which he was on, he kicked across field and managed to get it to bounce just into touch, just inside Leinster's half. So for a Clermont line out, they went for the maul, just to draw on attackers. It went to deck, and they played one phase before throwing up a really nice bomb that they were actually able to regather. They knocked on in the ensuing play, but it was called back for a previous Leinster knock on. So it was a Clermont scrum just outside the Leinster 22. They played off the back of it, but Leinster were able to disrupt it. But were then penalised for offside, giving Clermont the opportunity to kick inside the 22. In this case, Clermont gathered the line out cleanly, but did knock it on, which gave Leinster a scrum inside the 22, off of the back of which they were able to win a penalty, giving us a chance to clear our lines there. This became one of the things I thought characterized Clermont over this game was that they were able to identify things that Leinster do strongly and counteract them. So the line out as a source of attack was something they very clearly went off of. And they identified that one thing that Sam Prendergast likes to do and do well is kick very, very long down the line. And in this case, he tried to do the same from inside our own half. Probably didn't really expect that this much effort would be put into stopping him. But the ball was on its way just over the touchline, and Clermont probably aware that he does this and aware that when you go that far, the ball doesn't bounce very far into touch. Had a man stationed on the outside who was able to jump from outside play, catch it, and land back in, denying Leinster the line out there. They went through a few phases, launched a bomb, but it went to Geordie Barrett, who playing fullback, managed to clear it long again. Clermont came back strong up the side, but slightly overplayed and knocked on, giving Leinster another scrum. This led to another scrum penalty, and Sam Prendergast's next chance to go for the line. But again, this time deep into Clermont's own half, they managed to do the exact same thing. And you could see on the screen and in the stadium indeed that Sam was quite frustrated that these two line kicks, both of which were very nice and very well weighted kicks, that Clermont had found a way to neutralize that strength of his. And then to add insult to injury, Clermont returned the kick right back at him, and it bounced very, very, very close to the touchline, so close that I think Sam probably assumed it was gonna land in touch directly, and the bounce caught him off guard. It bounced into him and led to a knock on, which gave Clermont a scrum just inside their own half. They were able to play off the back of that. They attacked up into the Leinster half, but once again, to the rescue came Leinster's blitz defence, forcing a knock on, which Andrew Osborne fly hacked up into Clermont's half. Clermont were able to regather, go through some phases before Doris was able to actually, Caelan Doris, in an enterprising moment, spotted that the ball was in fact out at the back of the ruck and nicked it off them. They attempted to go wide, but an offload inside from Gary Ringrose to Jimmy O'Brien led to a knock on, and Clermont were able to regather. They cleared it not particularly far up, staying in their own half, and it was gathered by Geordie Barrett, and then a nice bit of Leinster play saw them making ground back up into Clermont's half. I think this was another thing that kind of characterized some of the mistakes we made over the course of the day. We tried to play a little bit too quickly, and the ball went off of R.A. Snyman, which is just not something that you usually see happen in a game. And that led to another Clermont scrum, at which point I think they subbed off one of their locks. Yep, the number 5 came off at that point. They were to clear off the back of that scrum, well fielded by Barrett, who sent up an up and under for Osborne to kick, or for Osborne to chase rather. But Clermont gathered it again, returned it, and this time Geordie Barrett kicking, which was pretty good over the course of the day, managed to find a touch for a Clermont line out just outside their own 22. They picked off took that line out in probably what was their best attacking bit of the second half. They made a break up the right wing and got all the way up to the Leinster 22 and came agonizingly close to going all the way until an attempted grab by Andrew Porter knocked it on, leading to, but still giving them a Clermont scrum just outside Leinster's 22. But once again, I suppose one of the positives of the day, when the lineout didn't fire, the scrum really did. So against the head, Leinster were able to win a scrum pen for I think Clermont angling in there. And at this point, I thought it was a credit really to Leo Cullen, who's a man who's been accused in the past of not trusting his bench at times, particularly in big games, particularly in a game like this where there's only an 8-point margin. With 15 minutes to go, he decided to sub both of his halfbacks, Sam Prendergast, who's going quite well, and obviously Jameson Gibson Park, who's talismanic for Leinster. They were replaced by Ross Byrne and Fintan Gunn, who came on for his European debut. Ross Byrne kicked a touch, made sure it made to the green seats for a Leinster lineout. Leinster were able to win this one, went through the phases in the Clermont half, but eventually Clermont were able to turn it over on the deck. That happened once or twice, and I think Pearce might have not been paying quite enough attention to who was pulling balls out of whose hands at what point in time. But they line kicked up, and the rather they won a penalty off the back of that, sorry, and they had a quick line out move that got them up into R22, but Max Deegan was able to, who had quietly had quite a good game, was able to get over the top for a turnover penalty, giving Ross Byrne a chance to kick for a line out just inside the Leinster half. Leinster were able to win it back again, went through some short phases, and then Fintan Gunn put up a great box kick, which Leinster were actually able to regather. Leinster tried to put a few attacking phases together, but Clermont was then able to disrupt again, causing Leinster to knock on, or not disrupted, but in their attempt to regather, knocked it on themselves, giving Leinster another scrum just inside their own half and another opportunity to win another scrum penalty. Rabbi Slimani probably enjoying being able to get one over on his old employers there. Ross kicked into the Clermont 22, but once again they were able to get up in that line out, disrupt it, which gave them a chance to clear their lines. Leinster had another line out on the Clermont 22, but it was then deemed not straight. The one time the Clermont didn't go up to contest, Leinster couldn't throw it straight. So Clermont opted for the line out themselves, but in I suppose, an act of immediate revenge, Leinster were able to disrupt it. And Jack Conan very nearly broke through there. Unfortunately, R.H. Simon coming on his shoulder, I think possibly slightly too enthusiastically, gathered the ball himself, so it was deemed a knock on. A Clermont scrum in their own 22. Leinster harassed them pretty ferociously off the back of that, almost to the point of being able to win a turnover. But they were able to just about get themselves out of trouble and clear up field. Although the ball did stay infield, and Leinster regathered, allowing them to attack back up inside the Clermont half, up the left wing after a number of phases in probably what was one of the more promising attacking opportunities. R.H. Simon was able to break through the middle. And that, this is the kind of move that, against Bristol saw Sam Prendergast go over. But in this case, once again, it's tackling inside the 22. And I think a combination of good tackling technique from the Clermont player and just possibly trying to force it a little bit caused the ball to go loose on the ground. And Clermont were able to clear it long upfield into the Leinster half for Max Deegan to regather and carry back into heavy traffic. Gunn once again launched a very nice kick off the back of that, which caught Ur de Paletta just off guard. He fumbled it, but managed to retain possession, and then Leinster came in to make the steal after that. Leinster launched an attack then just from outside the Clermont 22, but Clermont were able to steal it back and kick an excellent clearance to get to touch just outside of our 22. At that point, there was 75 minutes on the clock. Cian Healy took the field to general applause. And but once again, for that lineout, Clermont attempted to disrupt, but in this case overdid it. I think they were infringed for throwing a man across the line and taking the player in the air. So Leinster were able to kick back down the line for a lineout. Leinster got a lineout just outside the Clermont 22. In this case, managed to take it cleanly, went through a few phases, and once again, this is probably the next most promising point of attack. There was a partial break from Henshaw and then a nice little snipe from Fintan Gunn. It's the kind of thing you like to see, particularly from a player that age. Got us right up into their 22 and went through a series of phases until I think it was Clermont infringed for offside. Leinster played on until I think a knock on from Jack Conan as Ross Byrne tried to pass inside to him under the posts, but Leinster still had the penalty advantage at that stage. They opted for a tap and go, and unfortunately, in a day where a lot of planned moves didn't come off as I think they planned it, there was a little fake out where the forwards initially lined it up, but then dropped back, and Fintan Gunn went up instead, and to take it and pass it. But in this case, and to be fair to Luke Pearce, he must have been paying close attention because he called it straight away, and I think the cameras showed it to be the case that unfortunately in this case Gunn didn't actually tap the ball with his foot, so he was judged to not have restarted properly. So it was a Clermont scrum right in front of their own posts. To their credit, they did attempt to play off the back of it, but they shortly knocked it on, and that was the end of the game. Full-time 15-7 and player of the match Sam Prendergast. And I think the thing that comes through from all of that, I think it was appropriate kind of how that game ended, is just the number of handling errors and scrums and lineouts, and it was a long half.
Yeah, it was indeed. It did. I don't know. Watching it back a second time. I mean, especially when we got we earned the 2-score lead in the second half, and once we had it, it was like we were sort of in control. But you still can't get away from those lineouts, as Connor said it way back in the first half. You can draw a straight line from our lineout woes to our not getting the bonus point. I mean, we spoke at the start of the season about how Leinster is going to approach this season. I mean, nothing's going to happen until we get to May because, you know, the way the last 3 seasons have gone. So we can't just, you know, we're not just analyzing how we got through on this particular day. We're saying, well, if we play like this in those matches in May, what's going to happen, you know? And, but also there's the fact that a bonus point in the way this competition sorts out, a bonus points and every extra bit of even points difference could just get you that extra little higher seed in the final ranking. So, you know, you don't want to, you don't want them to cost you. And I think our final percentage was like 56% officially in lineouts. I said, you know, well, with 100%, we've got the bonus point, but as the lads in the group said, even 75% would have been better, you know. And just one thing about, I thought James Ryan had a good, quiet, but still strong, work rate wise performance. There was a lot of heavy carries at the right moments. Obviously, if our lineup was working better, he'd have been a lot more involved in all of that as well. But I thought he did well. The yellow card, that actually led to the 3 points. We didn't do a lot with it afterwards, but that was because of, you know, general things that were going on. Like we say, you know, Clérmont did defend well. Sam getting player of the match, I can see why it was Donald Lennon who made the call. I thought Porter had a good game, apart from that little discipline snafu in the first half, but he had a really good second half. Anyway, what did you make of it, Connor?
Yeah, I think the second half was much tougher watching. The few issues I would have with it as a half, again, if the line out isn't, as you said, if the line out isn't functioning, you're not getting a platform. The one platform we did have, which was the scrum, I've got a question: how many scrum penalties is a team allowed to give away before a referee needs to take action? Look, we saw it last week where the action was absolutely the wrong action. I don't know what's going on, and you don't either. So let's send both of you off. Was kind of the attitude last week. But this week there was very clear dominance in the scrum, and he wouldn't have been. I don't think he'd have been criticised for sending off a player from their front row for everything that, you know, for the amount of penalties they were conceding. But once the rain hit and the longer we went without scoring, it's almost like we were so desperate to score that everything we were trying just made it worse. If you know what I mean, you know, the need to score, the want to score. So you go for something and then you're knocking the ball on, or you're so eager to be making a difference that you go to take a ball that's actually skipping you for somebody else, and you end up headbutting the ball ahead of you, which happened to poor Snyman at one point. It wasn't an easy half to watch. As I said before we started recording, watching that second half, I genuinely felt Rich Mifsud was going to be talking about it because it was that shit. It wasn't pleasant. But you come away with a win, and that's all you can. You know, if you've got a lot of things going wrong for you on a day and you still come away with the win, that's not the worst thing in the world.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, gauging the reactions at full time amongst the Leinster fans, there was a lot of people who were like, "Oh, that was a good game," and I can see how you could, you know, I can see how you can come away saying that. I suppose if you're not analyzing it every week the way we do, analyzing each and every performance, I think we're a little bit more particular with what we're looking for. But still, you know, if you look at our history with Clermont as well, like there's times when any kind of a win over Clermont we would have been more than happy with, home or away. But it was just the manner in which the fact that we know that we could have gotten better. But it's also a consolation that you know that it's on your side, that you can fix it. It's not something that's just away from you and you just don't have the players. So hopefully it is something that they can improve down the line. But anyway, listen, the full-time whistle, like we said, it wasn't the best second half in the world, and the final score was Leinster 15, Clermont 7. Elsewhere in the rugby world, it was another mixed bag of results for the remaining Irish provinces this weekend. First, on Friday evening, Munster were unable to repeat last weekend's triumph over Top Qatar's opposition, as Castres proved once again they're a completely different proposition at home, and they held on for a 16-14 win. Then on Saturday in Belfast, Ulster looked up for the visit of the high-flying Bordeaux and led at half-time before the visitors, stars like Penno and Bia Barry, found the score sheet in the second half to run out convincing winners. Over in the Challenge Cup, though, Connacht managed to overcome their French opponents with a convincing 31-18 win at Perpignan, giving them a maximum start to their pool campaign. Meanwhile, back in Leinster's pool, both of the top two sides in the Premiership fell to their second defeats, with La Rochelle putting Bristol away handily before Benetton edged out Bath, meaning Ronan O'Gara's side shares top spot with Leinster on 9 points before their big meeting at the Stade Marcel de Flandre. So far, the only teams with maximum 10 points are Bordeaux, Toulouse, and Northampton. Going back to our feature match from Saturday, afterwards, Leo Cullen had this to say, quote, "The conditions deteriorated in the second half and it became quite difficult to play. But at the same time, there's lots of things we can be better at. So it's pretty mixed, I'd have to say," end quote. And from the fans' point of view, at the full-time whistle, Cormac Mannion said this on our Facebook page, quote, "We appear to unnecessarily overcomplicate a lot of our handling and passing. Some worrying flaws from Ireland have seeped into Leinster's performances," end quote. Do you disagree, or would you have said the same thing a different way? Well, we always have a post open on the Facebook page after Leinster and Ireland matches. Why don't you join the conversation next time? And so this brings us to our final thoughts, starting with Conor.
As I said already, the win is priority. The work-ons are important. Every game you want to come away with work-ons. I think that I said it in the stands at the time. If Ronan Kelleher continues to throw poorly at line-out time, that will not bode well for him when Sheehan gets back, and won't bode well for him if Gus McCarthy starts improving his. I want to see three hookers with clean lineouts. Is it too much to ask? It's your bread and butter. It's what you're there to do. It is your job. You have two jobs on the pitch. If you're struggling with those, we're very aware that Josh van der Fleer can throw an excellent line-out dart. There's nothing says the hooker has to be the one to throw. Maybe that's something that could be looked at. But if your flanker is throwing a cleaner line out than your hooker, you've got to really focus and concentrate on that. But aside from that, every time it seems the harder we tried, the more things went wrong. But we've come away with a win against French opposition. As you mentioned, there are days gone back where any win against Clermont was a celebrated thing. I think we should just be happy with it, take it, start working on the work-ons and move on. Get ready for Connacht next week.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned Dan Sheehan there. Actually, they said in commentary, but Bernard Jackman was having chats with people behind the scenes, and he seems to think that he might be ready to be back by the end of January, which would be great. I think our schedule's light around there. They might have to schedule an extra A match or something just to get some rugby into them ahead of the Six Nations, whatever. But that'd be really good news for Leinster and Ireland if he could come back. What are your final thoughts, David?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, push comes to shove, a win is a win. But it's not a win we're going to be happy with. Particularly when you talk about the seeding at the end of the season, both in terms of the opportunity to win games. A home semi-final, home quarterfinal should be easier to win, but also just in terms of from a business sense, the Leinster Rugby organisation would prefer more home games than less. So I hope for our sake, given that I think we would have thought going into this competition, away to La Rochelle again in over there would always be the toughest game of the pool, and may yet still remain to be the toughest game of the pool. That if we were going to ship any points or fail to get a bonus point as we did the last time we were over there, that was the game to do it in, not the home game just before Christmas. So I would hope that one doesn't come back to haunt us. The inaccuracies around the lineout definitely need attention, but I think they should be fixable. I mean, these are lads who, if it's the fact that you don't go with Kelleher, you go with Gus McCarthy as a starter instead, then we go down that road. But I also wouldn't say the problems weren't singular. It was a case of both the throws and I think the calling probably needs words to be had. Given the fact that if you counterbalance it with the fact that Clermont, and once again credit them with the amount of disruption they brought to the line out, they were able to identify pretty quickly that Sam Prendergast likes to kick the ball long when he goes for line kicks, and then they used that to pick off two of them that should have given Leinster good attacking positions. They were able to adapt on their feet like that. If they can do that, you would like to think that James Ryan and Ron Keller could put their heads together and go, look, we're just going to throw it to one and we're going to throw it quick and we're not going to mess around. Particularly when Sam Prendergast has gone to the trouble of getting us to the 5 metre line inside Clermont's 22. So there are problems there, but I think they're fixable. I definitely think that we need a strong showing in the Interpros to finish. I mean, we're rocking pretty strongly in the URC. That's definitely not the kind of thing you want to throw away just before the end of the year. It wouldn't be catastrophic, but for a narrative reason, even for the team's narrative, it's not. There's no reason to. This was a win we probably took tougher than we needed to, but it's still a win. Keep that momentum going. You've got a home game against Connacht. It's on the 21st. People will be out there looking to have a good time just before Christmas. Put on a show for them. Have a bit of fun, and then go down to Thomond. And if you have to wrestle Munster into a corner to beat them, wrestle them into a corner to beat them. I thought Sam Prendergast, despite having his line kicks picked off, I thought he showed very impressively, because it showed that Clermont recognised that as such a strength that they went to considerable effort to try to neutralise it. And I really hope he doesn't lose heart in his attempt to do that, because it is such a strength. And with a little change to the angle or just a little few meters, it's incredible to have a player who can land the ball that far down the line for you. But once again, credit to Clermont for going to the effort of neutralising it. I think the one thing we need coming out of that game is steadiness. There were a lot of moments where we had good attacking opportunities. We made line breaks. We had sets, and it was just, I think the pressure of the crowd, which might sound a little bit weird, but they went into that game. And I think someone in our group chat said it. We all went into that game with a little 5 in our minds. We thought that's what we were going to come out of it with. I thought that's what it's a Leinster home game in Europe. It should be par for the course. And stuff like, and I'm only going off the stuff that happened in the half that I covered, but it just off the top of my head, Snyman's break up the middle, Gunn's snipe, the failed tap and go, attempting offloads when they didn't need to be attempted, when you could have just carried, stuff like that, where you've put in the effort, you've done the hard yards, just slow it down. That, and obviously you want to go fast to take full advantage, but in some cases slowing it down just a little bit, just to the point that you still have control of the situation, and we could have capitalized on, if it even capitalized on 2 of what were, I'd say, at least 5 or 6 opportunities. That's 5 points instead of 4 points. To end on a positive, I will say that our defense is immense. That one try that they got was fluky. It was a bit of luck. It was a chip or a grubber through that came off of a Leinster foot, and then very quick strike attack from them to literally dive over the line. Obviously they had the other one out on the left wing that they almost got over, but once again, almost doesn't win anything. And it was Leinster's scramble defense, it was the blitz defense, it was their ability to shut down attacks before they ever got going, and that even if they did get through, they'd know they'd have someone. Gary Rose would be coming across, Jody Barrett would come across, Andrew Porter, when he knocked on the ball after Clermont's run down the right wing, that guy can squat 350 kilos, and he sprinted in the second half up the right wing to get to the point where he could get in the way of the ball. He knocked it on, but he still stopped that attack. So I think if there's one thing, and I mean, it makes sense with the guy we brought in to be senior coach, that Leinster's defense is still a massive point of strength. And I think if you had to have frailties in one area, I'd take having a bit of a weak line out when you can have a defense that is that impregnable.
But we're going to leave it there. Many thanks, lads, to Connor and David for joining me this week. Hope to have you on again soon. Thanks, lads.
Cheers, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
As for our next batch of Harpin, keep an eye out for our 80+ column, which should post on Wednesday. Then our attention turns back to the URC and the visit of Connacht to the Aviva Stadium. So be sure to follow us on any or all of our social media platforms, which you'll find at linktree/Harpin On Rugby. In the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.